This video we will talk about more information from the object-oriented concept. The first thing we will talk about the new relationship between the object we call composition relationship. Besides, we will continue to give you more examples about the static data members and the member function. We also will talk about we can define data member is constant. And how should we assign the constant data member value in the constructor initializer list? And the last one, we will introduce this pointer. So in this video, we will use the employee class, for example. So the first thing that I see, what is the employee class? In the employee class, actually, we have 4 private data. We have the first name, last name. We make the data type is string. So you can see here, we're using the string as the data attribute. String actually is an object. So here, each employee, they have their birthday. So that's why we have the date object we create earlier. So then we have the hire date is when the employee being hired. So these 2 objects, not only we have the object as a data attribute, we make these 2 objects actually is a constant object. Why? Because one thing is, any employee, their birthday can change or not. No. The employee which date being hired can be changed or not. No. That's why we make them our constant. So their first name and last name, maybe they can change. But here we only make the date, birthday and the hire date as a constant. So later we'll see the constant variable, supposedly we only can assign one time during the declaration, right? So when we have the class with the constant data attribute, how should we assign the value? So here again, your employees still have their constructor. So this constructor is the same thing. We have the string, or we have 4 data attributes, so we make the 4 data attribute for their constructor parameter. So here, after we passing that, of course, you need to pass in the string by constant. So that's why here the reference is string is constant string. So then the date you pass, we make that constant object as well. So this employee, actually, we do have the destructor function, so we will see that. So then we have the print information, because we only want to print, so this one should be getter function as well. Okay, so we see here, how should we implement that? So again, you see the include guard again. So then we include the header file. Why we include the date.h file? Because we have a date object in our class, employee class. So that's our 4 private data attribute. So here is we call the composition relationship. In the object-oriented concept, we have all the object, and between the object, they have many different relationships. They have inheritance relationship, they have the composition relationship, they have association relationship. So today we will talk about the first relationship we call composition. So composition actually is an ownership relationship. That means an object has another object as their private data. So like employee has a first name, employee has a last name. So both first name and last name, they are string. And string actually is one kind of object, because here we use a C++ string. And employee has a birthday. So date actually is an object as well. So the composition relationship means an object has another type object as their private data attribute. So then here your constructor, we pass in the string. Because they are all objects, so we pass in by constant reference. So we see how should we implement the employee.cpp file. Okay, so this one actually, like earlier we said, Even you have your first name, right? I can assign first name equal to the string we assign, right? But you see here, if your birthday is a constant object, can I really use the equal sign to assign this birthday again in the constructor function? Actually, you cannot. Remember, because constant, when you declare this one here already, they cannot really use the equal sign to assign in the constructor function. So here, actually, earlier when we talked about the initializer list, those initializer, you can choose, you don't want to assign here. Instead to assign here, you can assign in the constructor function body. But for the constant attribute, like here, the constant data attribute we define in here, they cannot be in the constructor function here. So instead, all the initializer, the purpose, what we do is, they try to assign all the constant data attribute. Because here, when you didn't really go to the constructor function yet, so that initializer can help us to prevent they try to assign, they already do the initialize the object and at the same time they assign. So that's why if you have any constant data attribute, they has to assign the value in the initializer. All other data attribute, they have their choice, either assign here or inside assign in the constructor function. Okay, so that's the constructor function. So the destructor function, actually what we want to do is, we want to show you before the destructor function being called, we will display some information. So then here, the employee print function, we can just print the first name and last name. So about the date format, we just call the date print function to display. So this example actually is a new class. We try to demonstrate to you to show you what is the composition relationship and also what is the constant data member. So the next one we see what the CPP file will do. So before we create the employee, we call manager. So the manager name is Snow White. So before you can call the constructor, we need to pass the birthday and the hire date object. So that's why these two objects being created first. So then we just print them using the manager print to print the information. So if you run this program, you will see the information from here. So this one actually what we do is we only call the print function is from this one. Right, because the name Snow White hired on July 16, 1999, and the birthday is June 22nd. Okay, but one thing is before this one, what we want to show you is, because did you remember earlier in our date object, we have our constructor function to print some information. So then the employee object also have the constructor function to print. But here you see, here we only create two date object. But when we program finish, so the employee object destructor function of course being called. But then you find out actually we have what? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 date object destructor function being called. Why that happen? Actually, what I want to ask you is, when you see this one, in this program, in this main function, total we have, look like we only have 1 object create, 2 object create, 3 object create. But honestly, total, how many object create? So here I want you to pause video for a little bit to think about total how many objects being created before we continue. Did you get the answer? In this main function, total how many objects being created? Actually, the answer is 7. We see here, we have one date object create. We have two date object create. Then we have the third object we call the employee object. But in this employee object, actually total how many objects being created? Remember, string is an object. String is an object. So we passing the birthday, pass the hire date. So actually, only for this employee object alone, total we have 5 objects being created. That's also the reason why here, earlier we have 2 date objects created from here, right? But we have 2 more date destructor function being called here, because this 2 date object actually is created in the employee object. We see here. So here you see Snow, first name, last name is a string object. So then the date, birthday and hire date we passing through. So when we create the employee object manager, this object, total they have 2 string, 2 dates. And this whole 4 object together is another employee object. So that's why earlier in that main function, total we have 7 objects created.